Good morning, I'm Diane Macedo. Thanks for streaming with us. In today's update, President Biden gave his first primetime address to the nation last night, announcing every adult in the United States will be eligible for a vaccine by May 1st. Biden also paid tribute to the more than 500,000 Americans who have lost their lives throughout the pandemic and pointed to better days ahead.
We all lost something, a collective suffering, a collective sacrifice. A year filled with the loss of life and the loss of living for all of us. But in the loss, we saw how much there was to gain in appreciation, respect, and gratitude. Finding light in the darkness is a very American thing to do.
The president says if people continue to wear masks and social distance, we could go back to some kind of normalcy by the 4th of July, but he warns conditions can change. Meanwhile, roughly 1 in 4 U.S. adults have now received at least one dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. New data shows Pfizer's vaccine is 94% effective against asymptomatic transmission of COVID-19 and equally effective against the more contagious UK variant. And as more Americans get vaccinated, we are going to see a lot more scenes like this. That's an 11-year-old girl in Oklahoma reuniting with her grandparents, hugging them for the first time in a year. And pandemic relief payments could be hitting some Americans' bank accounts as soon as this weekend. President Biden signed the bill into law yesterday after Congress passed it without a single Republican vote. A Pew Research poll shows that 70% of Americans say they favor the plan, including 41% of Republicans. In addition to direct payments to Americans, federal unemployment benefits will extend through early September at $300 a week. It also provides billions of dollars for vaccine distribution, testing, and small businesses. Now, one item that did not make it into the COVID relief plan is an increase in the federal minimum wage to $15. Despite that, Democrats are still vowing to raise the minimum wage for the first time in over a decade. So what impact would a $15 minimum wage actually have? Here's ABC's Elizabeth Schulze.
Well, y'all, getting ready to head into this job and punch this clock.
Raising the minimum wage is about more than money to Fran Marion.
Because I'm not fighting for me. I'm fighting so my kids don't have to struggle the way they watch their mama struggle. We made a lot of progress.
A single mother of 2, Marion earns $12.50 an hour as a shift manager at a McDonald's in Kansas City.
My average bring home pay is $730 every 2 weeks. My rent is $650 alone. There have been times to where I've fed all these customers, I've done my job, where I clock out. And the first thing on my head is, well, how am I going to feed my family at home?
How big of an impact would a $15 minimum wage have on your day-to-day life then?
I would be able to not have to worry about which bill am I going to sacrifice? Am I going to sacrifice and be willing to hear my child's stomach growl again? So it's really a difference between struggle and survival.
It's time for a $15 minimum wage at McDonald's.
6 years ago, Marion joined the Fight for 15, a movement popularized by advocates like Senator Bernie Sanders to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. That's around $31,000 per year for a full-time worker. At $7.25 an hour, the federal minimum wage hasn't gone up since 2009.
$7.25 an hour is a starvation wage. That's what it is.
Sanders and many Democrats make the case for legislation that would gradually increase the minimum wage to $15 over 5 years. But 8 Senate Democrats joined all Republicans last week in voting against an amendment to the COVID relief bill that would have done that. Instead, some in both parties support a gradual wage hike closer to $10 or $11.
$7.25 is sinfully low. We must raise it. The poverty guidelines to be above that if you're going to work and working full-time should be at $11 base.
Proponents say now's the time to give a raise to low-income workers who've been hit hardest on the front lines of the pandemic.
We have built our economy on a shaky foundation of low-quality jobs.
And data shows those workers are more likely to be Black and Hispanic.
Just like school segregation and neighborhood segregation, there's an occupational segregation that really has been exposed. Workers of color are crowded in certain jobs, in certain industries.
A rescue plan.
Adding his voice to the fight, President Biden.
If you work for less than $15 an hour and work 40 hours a week, you're living in poverty.
He points to polls showing a majority of Americans support a $15 minimum wage and that 29 states have state minimum wages above the federal level. 8 states plus D.C. have passed plans to raise their minimum wage to $15 an hour. And by the end of 2021, some 40 cities and counties will meet or exceed that level.
People tell me that's going to be hard to pass. Florida just passed it. As divided as that state is, they just passed it. The rest of the country is ready to move as well.
I think it's the wrong time.
Thomas Ward owns a barbecue restaurant in Orlando. The pandemic forced him to close his second restaurant and lay off more than 30 employees.
How difficult was it for you to make that decision to close one of your restaurants?
It was one of the toughest decisions that I have to do in my business career.
Florida's new law will gradually raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour by 2026. Ward says even the incremental increase to $10 this fall is a challenge at a time when his business is already struggling.
It's a 12% increase, which is pretty big. They didn't give us enough time to get ready for it. As a small business now, obviously we have to kind of balance out what we can do to increase pricing.
The cost to small business is a main argument against minimum wage hikes.
As a result of the increasing cost for businesses, some will lay off their workers, some will cut their hours, and some will cut the benefits that workers enjoy.
Opponents also argue a federal requirement hurts some industries and regions more than others.
In certain areas of the country, particularly poor and rural areas, this will bite very hard indeed.
The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office estimated an increase in the federal minimum wage to $15 per hour by 2025 would cost 1.4 million jobs and result in higher prices for goods and services, though some critics say their analysis used overly conservative assumptions. That same study also found 27 million workers would get a raise and 900,000 Americans would be lifted out of poverty.
Let's be proactive and put our money where our mouths are and really create that change.
Amanda Stevenson owns a fresh food store in Washington, D.C., where a $15 minimum wage has been in effect since last July. She acknowledges the costs.
I'm giving them at least the base. I would love to do more, but I need more income coming in.
But says a living wage is an investment employers should be willing to make to help address inequalities in the workforce.
I think as an entrepreneur, we can't really look at it just making sure that we are satisfied or our customers are satisfied. We need to make sure our employees are satisfied as well. They're the ones that show up for us every day.
Elizabeth Schulze, ABC News, Washington.
Our thanks to Elizabeth Schulze for that report. And 1 year ago today, Broadway theaters went dark because of the COVID pandemic. According to the Broadway League, nearly 100,000 workers rely on the theater industry for their livelihoods. Now, some of those actors are pivoting from the stage to a side hustle to help pay the bills. Ariel Reshef is here in New York with more.
Check out this feature. It's incredible.
For Don Daryl Rivera, showing a home is a performance.
I'm really a supporting player, and the house is the star. Tons of light, great windows.
But a year ago, he was putting on a different kind of show on Broadway as Iago in Aladdin.
I haven't done that in a while.
He's one of 97,000 Broadway professionals, nearly all of them out of work, many pivoting as they eagerly await the lights on Broadway to shine again. Tamika Lawrence's stage credits include If Then, and with pipes like these, it's no wonder she has 2 Grammys. Her new role, running her own socially conscious streetwear line called Ready, Set, Wear.
I've always been attracted to the fashion industry. The accessory that I am most jazzed about is the I Matter necklace. No matter who you are, black, white, whatever, I want boys and girls to feel like they matter.
I'll even overlook her English.
And for Tony nominee Robbie Fairchild, he's moved from An American in Paris on Broadway to Bouquet, his successful flower business now taking center stage.
I was shocked at how similar performing was to flower arranging.
Something he discovered after delivering flowers to a group of healthcare workers.
Thank you so much. It filled my soul. Just like when the curtain comes down and comes back up and you take your bow, there's that moment where you get to see the enjoyment of the recipient or the audience member. And I hadn't felt that joy until I made flowers.
But it's not just performers who have been impacted. John Christensen and Brian Blythe run a costume shop in New York and founded the Costume Industry Coalition, raising funds to help support hundreds of fellow costume makers, specialty vendors, and other industry small businesses.
Most people don't really see how much there is that goes into what we do.
We know that the entertainment industry is going to return. We just want to ensure that we're still around when it does.
And all of those artists say this is temporary and they can't wait to get back on the stage where they belong. And the Broadway League says they hope that the theaters will be back open again in the fall. Diane.
All right, Ariel Reshef, thank you. And it was about a year ago that first Broadway usher tested positive for COVID-19, prompting all theaters to close their doors. Now he's sharing his story, telling ABC News how it felt being one of the first diagnosed cases of COVID-19 in New York City and how he feels 1 year later.
I was one of the first people that was credited in New York City to have the disease, and my whole life turned upside down. If you would have told me, like, you would be a part of this disease, coronavirus, this pandemic, you know, this whole thing that's happening, I'd have thought you were a lie because I was 100% healthy. You know, I was doing the right things, taking vitamins and stuff like that. Why would I catch coronavirus? It affected the world of show business, you know, everyone, but especially show business because those shows are now closed. You know, shows that people went to go see to make them happy, to make them escape. You know, those actors, those stagehands, those theater managers, the ushers, you know, everybody, you know, pretty much is out of work now. I'm grateful to still be here. And we get to the end of this through helping one another.
Joining us now to reflect on this year without Broadway and to share how he's helping performers is Tony winner and Actors Fund Chairman Brian Stokes Mitchell. Stokes, it's so great to have you here this morning. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me, Diane. It's great to be with you.
So take us back to 1 year ago. What was your reaction when you heard that Broadway was closing?
It was shock, actually. Interestingly enough, I was 4 days from opening a show at City Center Encores that I was doing there called Love Life. And I had just walked down to the stage to try out the set, which they'd said, our set is finally finished. And so I sat down on some pieces on the set, and one of the crew members came out and he said, Broadway's closed, just got the word. And that was really shocking because we were also doing our first run through that day. And it made me reflect on all of the other shows, of course, running on Broadway. I believe the show 6, it was their opening night when they closed down. And when I talk about this, what is the most disheartening, I think, and sad for everybody in our business, it's people all usually think about the actors. It's the crew members, it's the musicians, it's the writers, it's the designers, it's all of the people. There are so many hundreds of people involved in each Broadway show that are affected by this kind of closing. And we never knew that it would go on this long. Here we are at a year.
Yeah, it's hard to believe, even now, that everything is still closed. You know, to your point, Broadway usually employs more than 97,000 people. So what have been the biggest challenges for those who've been out of work for a year now? And as you mentioned, not just actors, but everyone to the ushers in the aisle.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge have been that a lot of people's backup jobs, because as you know, and most people know, it's almost impossible to make a living in show business and the arts. It's very, very difficult. So a lot of people, particularly actors, they're the most well-known ones that have another job in a restaurant, or they're barkeepers as well. Those jobs have disappeared too, because Broadway supports so much of the business that is here in New York City, and particularly hotels and restaurants, but also all the other little shops as well. So that's been very, very difficult, as people haven't had jobs to fall back on. it's one of the things that I'm so happy about being involved with the Actors Fund. The Actors Fund has really come forward to help people out in situations. And the Actors Fund doesn't just help actors, it helps anybody who's a professional in the entertainment community when they're in times of need. And we certainly have had a lot of people in times of need.
And so how does the fund work? How are you helping these people?
Oh, a whole lot of different ways. We have a number of different programs. The most obvious example, I would say, though, is our Emergency Assistance Fund. In a normal year, we give out about $2 million in emergency assistance to about 1,500 people. That goes for the most essential needs that people have: paying their rent, buying food, paying for their prescriptions, paying for their insurance payments. This year, as of March of last year, we've given away $20 million to more than 15,000 people who have come to us from all walks of the entertainment industry. And I have to say, we've been able to accommodate everybody because we've had so many partners. We've had such generosity from donors and great people like Seth Rudetsky, for instance. There's a series they do called Stars in the House that's raised over $700,000. And all of these people coming forward to create different ways to make money for the Actors Fund so we can get it out to our brothers and sisters who need help.
Now, at the beginning of quarantine, when New Yorkers would cheer for healthcare workers every night, you used to serenade your neighbors from your window. How have you and other Broadway actors kept your spirits up during this time, and how have you found new ways to perform?
That's a really interesting question. I think one of the things that's been most fascinating to me is just to learn that no matter what, you can't keep an artist down, even a pandemic. We just have to create. We have to make things. And it's been amazing, thanks to Zoom, thanks to the technology that we have today, the ways that we've had to connect with different people in different ways. We did TikTok. In a partnership with TikTok, we did a Zoom performance of Ratatouille, a TikTok musical, which is something that never would have been done before. All of the TikTokers got together and started writing their own numbers and own scenes for Ratatouille, a live version of it. And we ended up airing that. We put them all together, and that raised a whole lot of money for the fund. So there's all kinds of ways that people are learning to not only perform, but to help others with their performance as well. Singing out the window for me was interesting because what I realized is people just need to be together and experiencing a live performance. One of my neighbors said that something that was very, very moving to me. I saw him on the street maybe 2 or 3 weeks after I'd started singing, because I did it for about 2 months. And he said, "I just want to say thank you so much. My wife, my 2 sons, we come out every day to clap and then to hear you sing. It's the one time in my day that I feel joy." And I think sometimes as performers, we forget that we provide kind of this essential nutrient to people as well. We reconnect them to their own space, their own center, their own joy, their own empathy, their connection to other people. And that continues in all kinds of myriad ways that performers and artists have been coming up with.
And it's been needed this year more than ever. All that said, as a performer myself, I know there's nothing like when you finally have that live audience in front of you. So what are you most looking forward to once theaters finally reopen?
I am most looking forward to sitting in an audience, sharing armrests with strangers, and watching a performance and laughing and cheering and doing it all without fear. There's nothing like a live performance. It's different than sitting at home watching a television or film. And I got to say, artists have been keeping us sane through this. You know, a lot of people look at television and film and they think, well, that's entertainment. No, those are artists working, artists, camera people and writers and directors and actors and all of those people. And they're the people that are keeping us from going crazy, I think. But what we've been missing is we're seeing that in two dimensions. It's always the same, no matter who you are, no matter when you see it, no matter where you see it. Theater is something special because it only happens that one time, especially for that audience. Every performance is going to be different. And depending on where you're sitting in the theater, it's a three-dimensional process you're seeing. So the person sitting in the front right of the audience is going to see something very different than the person sitting in the first row of the mezzanine. So it's a perfect kind of performance made just for you. And I think that's why we love that. We want to be with each other and to sit in a room and hear other people laughing and experiencing the same thing like that reconnects us to our joy.
Well, I share that with you. I can't wait myself to be rubbing elbows with strangers again and be happy about it. Brian Stokes Mitchell, thank you for everything that you're doing to not only keep people afloat during these dark times, but also spread some joy throughout. We so appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much. Take care, be safe, be well.
You too. And that does it for this ABC News Live update. I'm Diane Macedo. Thanks for joining us. And remember, ABC News Live is here for you all day with the latest news, context, and analysis. I'll see you back here at 3 p.m. Eastern with Terry Moran for The Breakdown. Have a great day.
And this is Dr. Kazmekia Corbett,
nice to meet you,
who is very much involved in this process.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.